You're clear.
So that's why we're asking the same question.
Well, yes. All I'm saying to you, we are committed. We are committed to openness. We are committed to the review of what this thing is being utilized for. And this is not just about a minister saying go and do this or go and do that. There's
and to the extent any legislative amendment was required, it would be passed transparently in Parliament.
Yes, if my colleague has just indicated to the extent that legislation, but to the best of my knowledge, there is no such requirement. Next question, please. Yes. All right. Okay.
Simpson spoke about in September at the conference. I got the idea she was more along the lines of information technology.
Also,
but
yes.
We haven't seen any of that mentioned in this current.
Yes, well,
in a major way.
And how do you, in terms of genes.
Right. Yes. Well, one of the interesting developments is that I got it from some of the questions I've heard. Not you. But I got the feeling that we should have people expected this is Manifesto and the subtitle is Jeep. I mean, if I'd allowed my dear friend and colleague Philip, his manifesto would be ICT and energy, because we literally had to edit down everybody because there's a volume of information which came forth. But what we wanted to do is to establish the principle of what we are seeking. We are saying that there's a crisis in the society. There's a crisis in terms of loss of jobs. There's a crisis in terms of poverty. No government can sit back. I'm told that one of the spokespersons for the government said the fundamental difference is that they expect the private sector to resolve the problem, whilst we wish to get the government involved. In every country, including the leading capitalist country in the world, the US, the state has had to be interventionist in that regard. And it's amazing that in a poor country where poverty has doubled, that such a viewpoint would be advanced.
There's a view that this manifesto is a repeat of a number of the policies of the government JLP.
Well, I'm hearing the view. I don't know if you wish to advance the view. Then I can give is G one example?
Well, maybe except G.
No, come on. You have to do a little better than that. If you look at if you cite me an example.
Yeah, cite an example.
I'm giving the view.
No, but I can't respond. There's a guy who thinks that the sun circles the earth. And am I supposed to respond to that?
There was a press release appointed to the reforms.
Reforms in what?
Tax reform, pension reform.
You study my speeches. Go and check my budget speech of 0405 or 0506. When I spoke to the immediate need and that I had initiated links with the World Bank and the IDB with regard to pension reform.
Yeah.
Let us get some other questions.
Tax reform and pension reform are not provinces of the Jamaica Labour Party. Tax reform is a process which was initiated in the Matalan Committee. An attempt was made to implement some aspects of it. Further reform is required, which we are participating in, and we will continue that process. Similarly, the need for pension reform became apparent. Initiatives were implemented to begin that process. The government has really not carried it very far. They have a green paper which is very defective, and we will have to continue the process in a consultative way to ensure that we arrive at an acceptable solution to the problem of the cost of pensions in the public sector.
Thanks, Mark. Next question.
In any event, there are some fundamental infrastructural issues that have to be addressed by any government of the day. That process has been started, as I said, by us and must be continued.
Question?
Yes, just to say congrats on the effort to do this, and that you're the second one out with the manifesto, the Marcus Garvey people came on before. but I want to look at it strategically.
I'm longing to see the JLPs, so we could
JLP
know
what
we could know why we have copied what they have not yet written.
I come back to come out there before then. But
oh, thank you.
Yeah, I do. Generally, I think the manifesto failed. While you did look at the current situation, you spoke about your strengths and what you have delivered in the past. There was no acknowledgement of any of your shortcomings in the past. And speaking as a strategic, and from a strategic level, if we had challenges in the past and we failed to acknowledge them and explain why it's not going to happen in the future, we could have a wonderful plan, and success is 1% planning and 99% execution.
You're coming to the question, right?
Right. So therefore, we had a period of economic growth averaging 1.7% over 18 years. 19 years actually. If that happened under excellent external conditions when the world was going about 4.5, how can we be convinced, and you have already acknowledged in documents,
it's a long question, no,
that things are difficult?
Yes.
How are we, with 1.7 on the good times, how are we expected to have anything more than that on the difficult times?
Okay.
Just a question.
Sure, the long road too. But it's not spin. Yes. Let me answer. Yeah, let me. He used to watch West Hall. But anyway, let me answer. Bobby, there are several structural changes which we had to put in place or to go through. When you look at that average of 1 point, and I think you should tell Minister Shaw what the average is. Yes, I think because
38%.
I know, but 41. But he persists.
41 in the good years.
He persists.
No, 41.
He persists in talking about 0.8. So I think we may need to be there tonight to correct him. But if in the first instance you've forgotten that the PNP liberalized the foreign exchange market, and we stand by that. But there are some, it was inevitable. I recall Michael Manley saying as Prime Minister, saying to the BOJ and the Financial Secretary that when they're arguing for retention of the controls, he said that is an amazing proposal, because at least we have 2 persons in Jamaica who believe in the system. But imposing it and liberalizing it was a major setback in terms of inflation, in terms of trying to stabilize interest rates, etc. So you consider that. I'm not going to list all the things we did, but note this. There was a period through concerted effort when the inflows in terms of FDI are unprecedented in tourism, in ICT, etc. And we believe that although we didn't reap the full benefits, we were on the stream. If you look in 06, 07, the last year for which we have full responsibility, growth was 3.2%.
Last quarter was 1%.
So what does that prove? We'd have recovered after if we had stayed in office. Yes, but yes, I know, but I state a figure. Do you question it? 3.2 was our. No, we believe that if we had continued, not with just from traditional sources, but we feel, for example, that this government, initially through political rudeness, the manner in which former Prime Minister Golden described our relationship with Venezuela, hampered our bilateral arrangements in terms of the development of the refinery, the expansion and modernization. And we feel several other initiatives. This administration, over its 4 years, has not had a new initiative in terms of linkages with the emerging economies which are going to be dominant in the future. So if you ask me, we had laid the foundation, and these things didn't occur by chance. These inflows just didn't occur by chance. My former colleague Paul Robertson was mocked by saying things were in the pipeline. Nobody has ever given them credit when they started coming through the pipeline. But there are other initiatives which by now we would be reaping the benefits if they had been continued there.
Just a quick
I just want to add one point on the introspection issue.
Right.
We have gone through a process of introspection.
Right.
It began with an appraisal report
Right.
led by Professor Brian Meeks, arising from what happened in 2007 in those elections,
Yeah.
which has resulted in internal reforms within the party in a variety of areas, from accounting and finance to integrity and other issues as well, organization. In the Progressive Agenda process as well, and in the Progressive Agenda document, there's a section which looks at some of the things that were not done as we would have, looking back, as we would have liked. So the reality is that we are aware of strengths and weaknesses. Nobody is perfect, though we believe our record is a strong record. It has not always been properly portrayed and fairly portrayed, but if you look at the facts, there's a substantial amount to be proud of, and we're going to build on that going forward.
Robert, there will be a follow-up question.
It's a follow-up question.
It's a question, right?
1996.
But there are others who want to ask questions.
National Industrial Policy had suggested 6% growth for the next 10 years, and that was in 1996. That wasn't early in the time. But yet, after a lot of work on it, we just dropped it and it went to 3 years of negative growth. I'm just trying to remember, why had we dropped the National Industrial Policy?
Financial sector.
Which really
It wasn't dropped per se, but those 3 years you're talking about negative growth was at the heart of the financial sector crisis, and that became the major issue
Managing
to deal with.
Thanks. Dwight?
Yeah, I was looking at the G in terms of sort of backward and forward. What I don't know if that has been explained clearly, what sort of benefits, add-on benefits or benefits that we probably wouldn't be clear on the surface.
Well, for us, the first benefit is that we will put people to productive work, and then we are going to be spreading the benefits down rather than one firm being given $1 billion contract. You'll have several small contractors being employed in carrying out these activities. There's a part to the Jeep which perhaps my colleague Comrade Golden will speak to about involving the small and medium-sized institutions. But from the perspective of carrying it through, it would have to be, and I accept that we perhaps need to flesh it out in terms of